brown-haired man breaks Kanae's heart by announcing his sudden marriage in her hospital room. Distraught and weak behind her oxygen mask, Kanae struggles to process the betrayal. Flashbacks of cherished photos reveal a lifetime of trust in the woman who betrayed her. Memories of a once happy friendship with the blonde woman now feel like a cruel lie. Tears fall as Kanae realizes the depth of the deception from those she loved most. He dismisses her pain with a heavy sigh, showing no remorse for his actions. The man coldly demands her understanding, callously citing her imminent death as justification. He walks away with a simple farewell, ignoring her desperate, muffled pleas for him to stay. Left alone to die, Kanae reflects on the overwhelming misery and betrayal of her life. Her family's greed and her lover's infidelity flash before her as her pulse finally fades. In a sterile afterlife, a bespectacled angel with a halo apologizes for a catastrophic system error. The polite administrator calmly informs Kanae that her life officially ended at precisely 6:08 p.m. Confused and disoriented, Kanae questions the strange office environment after her sudden death. He presents a document detailing her life stats, which she finds incredibly difficult to accept. He explains the birth parameters, asking if she can see her scores for wealth and health. The angel admits her love parameter was accidentally set to 0, leaving her completely stunned. A close-up of Hana Kanae's status reveals the abysmal 0 that doomed her previous life. He offers a sheepish apology for the clerical mistake that ruined her entire existence. Realizing why she was never loved, Kanae confronts the angel about the unfairness of her fate. To compensate for his error, the angel presents a special offer for her next reincarnation. He cheerfully suggests an early death allows for a quicker restart, much to Kanae's annoyance. The administrator leans in, reiterating his desire to make amends through this unique opportunity. He reveals she can choose to be reborn in any world, including those from fiction. He instructs her to focus on a specific destination while a giant clock ticks behind him. Images of romance novels appear, reminding her of a story Sayaka had once recommended. Impressed by her quick decision, the angel claps his hands in delight. With a polite smile, the angel encourages her to step through and begin her new life. Feeling a strange sensation, Kanae begins walking toward the radiant light of her future. She notices an odd imbalance in her spiritual body as she moves toward the portal. The angel explains her lopsided stats require an immediate adjustment for her next incarnation. He waves a cheerful farewell as Kanae begins to dissolve into her new reality. The scene shifts to a magnificent, gold-trimmed palace hall, dripping with royal opulence. A tender voice echoes through the grand room, marveling at a precious new arrival. Surrounded by maids, a noble couple adores their newborn daughter in a lavishly decorated bedroom. The silver-haired Duke cradles the baby, and Kanae realizes she has been reborn as Flora. People crowd around to admire the adorable infant as the Duke proudly introduces his daughter. Flora finds her new name charming and hopes to see her own healthy face soon. Sparkles of magic fill the air as time advances, transitioning to several years later. Now 6 years old, Flora curses the underworld system for her current predicament. She clutches a glowing jewel at her chest, her expression filled with intense frustration. Recalling the angel's promise, she wonders if her current plight is the promised adjustment. Closing her eyes, she tries desperately to manifest even a single spark of magic power. Her effort results only in a pained groan as her tiny mana pool fails her. Enraged, Chibi Flora fumes over her inability to produce even enough mana to light a match. She compares her lack of talent to her legendary father, magician mother, and gifted siblings. Deciding to drown her sorrows in sweets, she irritably stuffs a piece of chocolate into her mouth. Standing on her chair in despair, Flora laments that this life might be a failure too. Shivering outside a grand mansion, white-haired Flora struggles with the freezing temperatures. Desperate to escape the chill, the young girl rushes through the palace doors. Flora considers her lineage, noting the powerful Pasi family members she was born into. Her energetic siblings overwhelm her as Robert's tight hug leaves Flora pleading for help. She sighs, frustrated by the stark contrast between her weak body and her talented family. A sudden loud bang echoes as her brother Robert kicks his own bedroom door down. Flora stands frozen in shock, staring at the debris of the ruined pourway. Robert offers a sheepish apology, admitting he accidentally applied way too much physical force. Staring at the massive door on the floor, Flora questions her brother's absurd strength. Her blonde sister Ermin scolds Robert for his carelessness while he remains defensive. The siblings excitedly invite Flora outside to build a snowman with them in the courtyard. Flora hesitates, noting how hard her 12-year-old siblings try to act like protective adults. She imagines a peaceful life sipping cocoa, dreading the sickness that cold weather brings.
Her oldest brother, Carl, appears with a gentle smile, encouraging her to join the fun.
Seeing her siblings together, Flora calls out to her brothers Carl and Robert.
Overcoming her hesitation, Flora cheers with excitement, much to her brother's surprise.
Carl happily carries Flora outside, while she notes the difference between making and seeing snowmen.
Stepping into the courtyard, the young girl gasps in awe at the winter scenery. A colossal snowman tower, complete with a bucket hat, looms over the entire area. Robert and Ermin stare up in disbelief, shocked by the sheer size of the creation. Despite the fun, Flora's nose begins to run after only a moment in the cold. Her parents arrive, with her mother warning that she isn't dressed warmly enough for play. Surrounded by shimmering magic, the Duchess reaches out to take her daughter. Embraced by her mother's warmth, Flora feels perfectly cozy and safe from the chill. A sudden, high-speed snowball whizzes past, prompting a terrified scream from the young girl. Her father explains the family's aggressive version of a snowball fight, inviting her to join. Flora watches in horror as snowballs explode like bombs, realizing this game is dangerous. Carl tries to moderate the siblings' power, but the younger duo seems too excited. Robert and Ermin prepare for another round, while Flora watches with a panicked expression. A blur of white streaks toward her as a wayward snowball targets Flora. With a sudden splat, the high-speed projectile makes direct contact with her face. Dazed and dizzy, Flora reflects on the extreme nature of this supposed family bonding. Another explosion of snow hits her, sending the frail girl reeling from the impact. Falling into the snow, Flora cries out for her mother as her strength fails. The Duke and Robert panic, rushing toward the fallen girl with expressions of sheer terror. Her father cradles her, frantically checking to see if her nose is broken from the hit. Flora wipes away tears, realizing with shock that her nose has started to bleed. A gasp of horror escapes the Duke as he sees his daughter's injury. He sprints through the halls with Flora, desperately shouting for the doctor, Lucas. Flora becomes increasingly dizzy, wondering how these physical monsters manage to survive their own lives. Bursting into the room, the Duke presents the bleeding girl to a startled brown-haired man. Lucas, the bespectacled doctor, looks on in confusion while Flora groans his name. In the library, Lucas examines the girl while the Duke explains the snowball accident. Flora claims she is fine, secretly blaming her dizziness on her father's reckless sprinting. Seated on a plush chair, she finally sighs in relief as the bleeding stops. Lucas scolds the family, reminding the powerful relatives of Flora's extreme fragility. Overcome with guilt, Robert and the Duke weep as they beg Flora for forgiveness. Carl gently tucks her back into bed, expressing deep regret for his lack of caution. He kisses her forehead before leaving, telling her to call him for anything she needs. Left alone, Flora worries about her weak stats and the angel's failed promise of benefits. A white rabbit with red eyes sprints frantically across the frozen winter landscape. The rabbit trips over a bloodied stone, realizing it is being closely pursued. With a sharp sound, the small creature is sent tumbling through the snowy grass. Bleeding and exhausted, the rabbit collapses as a pained groan escapes its tiny body. Gasping for breath, the creature realizes it must escape this dangerous area immediately. Fear fills its eyes as the rabbit silently begs for someone to save it. A woman in a dark cloak holds a lantern, searching through the snowy forest. The blonde Duchess suggests ending the search since they have already looked plenty. She looks back with a hint of regret, her green eyes reflecting the cold. Robert and Ermin express disappointment that they haven't found a better gift for Flora. The Duchess pulls her children into a warm embrace, promising to search again later. Robert suddenly spots something in the distance and sprints off with high energy. Despite his mother's calls, the blonde boy disappears into the snowy brush. Parting the bushes, Robert peers down at a shivering creature hidden in the foliage. He discovers the white rabbit, which trembles with fear at his sudden presence. His family joins him, watching as Robert gently scoops the injured animal into his arms. He notes the rabbit's wounds, concluding it was likely attacked by a dangerous monster. Concerned about the mother's absence, they decide to take the orphan bunny home. Robert uses magic to open a portal, intending to store the rabbit safely inside. Ermin scolds him, noting that the rabbit's name is Laura and it's too dangerous. Grinning, Robert admits he named the rabbit after seeing Flora's cute reaction earlier. The scene shifts to the white-haired Flora sleeping soundly on her plush pillow. Melanie, the brown-haired maid, swoons over how adorable her sleeping mistress looks. She can't resist gently poking Flora's cheek, cooing at her doll-like features. Flora stirs awake with a soft groan as the maid continues to dote on her. Overwhelmed by the cuteness, Melanie clutches her chest while imaginary hearts fill the air. The maid decides she must draw this adorable version of Flora to preserve it forever. A narrator explains Melanie's obsession with capturing every movement of her mistress through art. Melanie imagines various hair ornaments, convinced that anything would suit the young lady perfectly. Ermin enters and signals Melanie to stay quiet as Robert prepares the surprise. The blonde siblings gaze at the white-haired angel with expressions of pure adoration. Flora wakes up as her siblings excitedly announce they have brought her a special present. Sitting up in bed, Flora is intrigued by the mention of a surprise gift. Robert and Ermin invite her downstairs to see the present they prepared. The siblings lead Flora down the grand staircase, her heart swelling with happiness. Standing before massive doors, Robert prepares to reveal the surprise they found. They swing the doors open with a joyful shout, finally revealing the secret gift. Inside, the white rabbit rests comfortably in a lavish, gold-trimmed pet bed. A soft sound marks the moment Flora gasps in delight at the adorable bunny. She clutches her face in shock, her red eyes sparkling with genuine wonder. Robert explains they rescued it, but hints that the real present is even bigger. Ermin quickly restrains her brother, warning him not to reveal the dangerous secret here. She insists the main demonstration must happen at the training hall instead. Robert apologizes for his slip, while Flora wonders why they are panicking. Flora looks between her siblings, sensing a strange tension regarding the real gift. Overwhelmed by Flora's adorable gaze, the siblings clutch their hearts and swoon. Robert falls to the floor, pleading for his sister to cover his mouth. Ermin shushes her brother again, reminding him to keep the surprise a secret. Flora remains suspicious, questioning what kind of present could be considered too dangerous. The Duchess enters the room, wishing Flora a good morning with a warm smile. The blonde Duchess pulls white-haired Flora into a warm, affectionate embrace. Flora happily returns the hug, her eyes closed in pure comfort and joy. Robert and Ermin eagerly suggest showing Flora the surprise before they have breakfast. The Duchess insists on waiting for the whole family, leaving Robert feeling nervous. A grand breakfast feast is beautifully displayed across the long dining table. The silver-haired Duke mentions hearing about the children's early morning mountain trip. The Duchess explains that Robert has an apology gift for Flora after breakfast. Both the Duke and Carl immediately promise to be free for Flora's surprise. Flora sips her tea, feeling anxious but excited about the mysterious family gift. Gathering in the training hall, Robert prepares to reveal the secret gift to everyone. With a confident grin, Robert opens a shimmering blue subspace portal for Flora. The Duke, Duchess, and Flora watch with mixed expressions as the portal activates. Flora gasps in sudden terror as something begins to emerge from the subspace. A terrifying fanged mouth bellows as a strange creature leaps into the room. Shouting "Eek!" the white-haired girl trembles with fear at the aggressive white monster. Flora frantically ducks behind her mother's dress, begging the creature to stay away. The Duchess looks surprised while Flora continues to hide, terrified by the present. A small, fluffy white monster chirps "Qua," appearing much cuter than its mouth suggested. Flora realizes that despite its fluffiness, the fanged beast is still a dangerous monster. Robert explains he caught the creature because it reminded him of his childhood pet. Clinging to the fabric of her mother's dress, Flora reflects on her abnormal family. A dark-haired man in a military uniform speaks up, catching the family's attention. The knight stands formally, noting that ordinary people are naturally afraid of monsters. The Duchess asks Flora if she is truly afraid, while Ermin looks on curiously. The knight explains how his own younger sister cries if he has monster blood on him. He continues his story, laughing gently about how sensitive some young ladies can be. The group discusses the situation while Flora remains skeptical about the knight's words. Robert declares he will fix things so his sister is never scared again. With a focused expression, Robert points his finger toward the white, fluffy monster. The monster groans "Gwa" as it is suddenly split into two green slimes. Flora stares at the green creatures, feeling even more unsettled by her brother's magic. Flora grabs Robert's sleeve, suggesting they just return the poor creature to its home. Robert is moved to tears by Flora's kindness, hugging her while sobbing loudly. Flora gives a sweet, genuine thank you to her big brother for his effort. The siblings watch Flora interact with the monster, their hearts full of adoration. Later, Flora ponders a name for the white rabbit while it rests nearby. The rabbit hops up to Flora, appearing to listen to her every thought. Giggling with delight, the young girl gently pets the soft fur of her rabbit. A door creaks open as the rabbit sleeps peacefully on a gold-trimmed chair. A text box reveals the rabbit's true identity is Evan, who possessed Flora earlier. A massive, majestic magic tower stands alone amidst a snowy winter landscape. Flashback, a black-haired boy named Evan screams that he can't take the training anymore. Evan protests, arguing that he has already gained enough magical ability for his age. The silver-haired magic tower master ignores the boy's complaints, demanding more focus. Evan shouts that he will die if the harsh, non-stop training continues any longer. The tower master smirks wickedly, finding a new and devious idea for Evan's training. Confused and sweating with nerves, Evan asks what the master is talking about. The master reaches out toward the boy as he tries to back away. Shouting in panic, Evan is engulfed by magic as he is suddenly transformed. The magic tower master sentences Evan to live as a rabbit until he breaks the mana seal. Stunned and horrified, the boy realizes he is about to be transformed against his will. The silver-haired master declares he will wait for Evan's eventual return to the magic tower.
Now a fluffy white rabbit, the boy is shocked to hear a high-pitched squeak escape his throat.
Frantic and confused, the rabbit sprints through a snowy forest, wondering how he ended up here.
Flashback. The master commands young Evan to clean a cluttered research room filled with old books.
Evan seethes with resentment as he is forced to perform humiliating chores like disposing of tissues. In the present, the rabbit lounges on a plush cushion, desperately wishing his mana seal would break.
The red-haired knight presents reports to the silver-haired duke, who is hard at work in his office. Clutching his hands together, the duke looks intensely worried about his daughter's upcoming debut.
He frets that Flora has never left the mansion and fears the banquet might cause her harm.
The red-haired knight suggests that the young lady is at an age where she needs friends.
The duke stubbornly argues that his other children managed perfectly well without any social circle.
The red-haired knight can only offer a strained smile at the duke's overly protective attitude. The duchess enters, insisting that Flora cannot spend her entire life hidden inside the mansion walls.
Smiling warmly, the blonde duchess advocates for the necessity of a proper debutante ball for Flora.
The duke remains conflicted, his red eyes reflecting deep concern for his fragile daughter's well-being.
Little Flora clenches her fists with excitement, her red eyes sparkling at the thought of a party.
The Duchess explains that Flora's debut was only delayed because of her extreme fragility in childhood. Despite the Duke's lingering hesitation, he finds himself completely outvoted by the ladies of the house.
The duke sighs in defeat, admitting he was finally worn down by his wife's persuasive arguments.
A joyful hooray echoes through the room as the family officially begins planning the grand celebration.
Flora wakes up in her sun-drenched bedroom, stretching her arms with a sleepy, satisfied yawn.
The winter sun shines brightly over the ornate gables of the snowy mansion on this special day.
Looking out at the courtyard, Flora notes the cold air and wishes for the return of spring.
A tiny Flora muses that the fountains have likely been stopped to prevent them from freezing solid.
Robert waves enthusiastically from below, greeting his little sister with a bright good morning.
The blonde boy sprints toward her balcony, promising to come up and see her immediately. A cheery heave-ho sounds as Robert leaps over the stone railing, landing with a flashy flourish.
He beams with pride, basking in the admiration of his sister after his impressive athletic display.
Flora asks if he used magic, but Robert casually claims it was just a simple feat.
Melanie interrupts the siblings, announcing that it is time for the young lady to start getting ready.
Robert bids her a quick farewell, leaping back down as he heads off for his own preparations.
A golden hairbrush glides through Flora's silver hair as Melanie asks how she is feeling today.
Flora beams with pure joy, thrilled by the prospect of finally making friends and going outside. Melanie mentions the empire-wide festival beginning today, further heightening the sense of grand celebration.
Flora realizes her birthday has become a major event, her face lighting up with genuine excitement.
The maid laughs at her mistress's adorable reaction, finding her enthusiasm absolutely contagious. As she looks in the mirror, Flora wonders if she might even be allowed to explore further. Flora stands revealed in a stunning purple gown, looking like a miniature queen in her reflection. Melanie giggles, noting that the rabbit seems to be completely captivated by the young lady's beauty.
The rabbit stares at Flora with wide, stunned eyes, seemingly overwhelmed by her radiant appearance.
Flora leans down to ask the rabbit if it would like to accompany her to the festivities.
Seeing the creature's hesitation, Flora tilts her head and wonders if it truly wants to stay behind.
Melanie ponders whether rabbits can understand human speech, given the strange connection between them. Flora hugs the rabbit tightly, whispering a secret relief that its true identity remains hidden.
Looking out the window, Flora gasps at the endless line of elegant carriages arriving at the gates.
Melanie confirms that all these people have traveled across the land specifically to celebrate Flora's birth. Carl steps into the room looking exceptionally dashing in his formal white and gold military regalia.
Flora is momentarily dazed by her eldest brother's handsomeness, feeling proud to be a sister. Robert yells at Carl, insisting that he should be the one to escort Flora.
The blonde duchess suggests Robert escort Ermin while she declines an escort for herself.
Flora settles the dispute by suggesting Carl and Robert each hold one of her hands.
Overwhelmed by her adorable compromise, Robert cries out Flora's name with tears of joy.
An announcer introduces the guests of honor as Flora enters with her protective older brothers.
The elegant guests applaud enthusiastically as the silver-haired young lady finally makes her debut.
Flora receives several extravagant gifts, including gold bars, an enchanted bracelet, and a diamond necklace.
The tall nobles tower over little Flora, presenting their lavish birthday offerings with eager smiles.
Flora looks up in utter bewilderment as the pile of expensive gifts continues to grow. The golden doors swing wide as the emperor and crown prince make their formal entrance. Holding a beautifully wrapped gift, the young crown prince looks ahead with a stoic expression. Dressed in magnificent red and gold regalia, the royal father and son march toward Flora. The Duke and Duchess greet the Emperor while Flora observes the royal family with curiosity. The Emperor jokingly suggests a matchmaking plan, much to the silver-haired Duke's visible annoyance.
Patting his son's shoulder, the Emperor commands the young prince to present his birthday gift.
The blonde crown prince formally wishes Flora a happy birthday while handing her the present.
Flora notes the prince's somber nature, wondering if he was forced to grow up too fast.
In a memory, a maid explains how his personality changed due to his heavy responsibilities.
Flora observes the boy closely, noting that he does not seem much older than herself.
Looking into the prince's serious blue eyes, Flora feels a sudden wave of sympathy. The medals and golden embroidery of the prince's uniform signify his heavy imperial burdens. Suddenly, a glowing blue status window for Louise Carcassonne appears before Flora's startled eyes. The screen reveals the prince's impressive stats alongside his shockingly low sociality and self-esteem scores.
Flora recognizes the system interface from her previous encounter within the mysterious underworld.
Reading the evaluation, she realizes the prince's stiffness stems from his profound lack of confidence.
Flora envies his S-rank wealth and A-rank ability, calling his prestigious status a total cheat.
A soft wah escapes her as she rubs her eyes, confused by the floating window. Seeing her distress, the Duke leans down to ask if his daughter is feeling unwell. Flora quickly reassures her father that she is fine while the prince watches silently. The Emperor watches the interaction, seemingly amused by the young girl's expressive and cute reactions. The Emperor asks for her impression of his son, taking the conversation in an awkward direction. Hoping to change the subject, Flora reaches out toward the Crown Prince's gold-trimmed shoulder. With a gentle touch, she plucks a tiny loose thread from the prince's immaculate uniform. Flora holds up the stray golden thread, staring at it with a curious, questioning expression. The adults laugh heartily, praising Flora's sharp eyes while teasing the prince for his mistake. Flora realizes she must say something to prevent the prince from feeling even more embarrassed. The Crown Prince's face turns bright red as he trembles with intense, silent humiliation. Flora watches him with wide eyes, surprised by the extreme intensity of his bashful reaction. Fearing she hurt his low self-esteem, Flora feels a pang of guilt for her actions. The blonde duchess checks Flora's forehead, worrying that her daughter might be developing a fever. Recalling stories about the prince's ice magic, a clever idea suddenly forms in Flora's mind. Determined to save his pride, Flora prepares to put her acting skills to work. Fanning herself dramatically, Flora complains about the heat to give the prince a helpful opening. She gives the stoic prince a pleading look, internally begging him to catch her hint. Taking the cue, the prince activates his magic, sending beautiful snowflakes throughout the warm hall. A shimmering winter wonderland unfolds as Flora watches the magical display with genuine wide-eyed wonder. Catching a glowing blue snowflake, Flora marvels at the exquisite beauty of the prince's magic. While the guests murmur in admiration, Flora praises the prince for his truly magnificent ability. Beaming with joy, Flora thanks the Crown Prince for cooling her down with his magic. The Crown Prince looks at Flora, his expression softening as he hears her sincere, warm praise. The blonde prince stares at Flora, utterly baffled by her unpredictable and mysterious behavior. Flora smirks knowingly, deciding it is finally time to proceed to her next plan. Excited for a change of pace, Flora asks her brothers when they can play outside. The Emperor encourages the children to get along, while Flora invites the prince to join. As the Emperor offers protective advice, the prince remains skeptical about joining the boisterous group. Carl stands by the grand doors, reminding Flora to return inside if she gets cold. With a warm smile, Carl lifts Flora to carry her safely across the slippery ground. A sudden, loud clack sounds as the doors open to reveal a massive, raging inferno. The twin brothers panic, frantically explaining they only meant to melt the dangerous courtyard ice. Chaos erupts as one twin attempts to douse the magical flames while the others watch. Carl sighs in exasperation while the prince prepares his own magic to handle the mess. Channeling his power, the prince releases a burst of ice magic to extinguish the blaze. The fire vanishes instantly, and the mischievous brother sticks out his tongue, claiming it was a joke. The blonde prince stands frozen in shock, unable to believe the twins' ridiculous and immature behavior. Noting their age, the prince finds their penchant for pointless pranks to be quite exhausting. Flora looks visibly fed up, making the prince wonder if this chaos is normal for her. The scene shifts to the snowy garden where the siblings cheer at the beautiful winter scenery.
Carl watches over the group as Flora and the twins prepare to play in the snow.
Beaming with joy, Flora calls out to the prince, urging him to experience the cold snow. The prince observes her transformation from sour to sunshiny, finding the young girl truly strange.
Together in the courtyard, the group works on rolling a massive snowball for their winter fun.
Back inside, Flora sleeps soundly while Carl and Robert watch over her with deep affection. Moving quietly, the brothers decide to leave the room so their exhausted sister can rest undisturbed. Rhythmic footsteps click against the floor as the two brothers exit the lavish, sun-filled bedroom. Safe in her bed, Flora mumbles softly in her sleep, lost in a peaceful dream. Flora suddenly wakes up in an unfamiliar, glowing void, looking around with wide, startled eyes. Confused by the change in scenery, Flora realizes she has seen this mysterious place before. A tall, black-haired man with a halo appears, surprising Flora with his sudden, calm presence. Adjusting his glasses, the haloed man explains that her special status list benefit is now active. Flora realizes this power allows her to see the hidden stats and evaluations of everyone around. The man explains he is visiting her within a dream space to clarify her new abilities. He reveals the status list was intended as an apology for her previous unloved life. A system window explains her high love parameter ensures she is naturally cherished by her family. The man explains that this ability helps her gain favor even from those in opposing positions. Flora points toward the man, asking if other status items can change over time as well. He confirms her suspicions, displaying the prince's status window as a clear and relevant example. Flora gasps in surprise, recalling the specific evaluation she saw during the earlier birthday banquet. He explains the list prioritizes traits that will most likely win over another person's favor. The haloed man assures her that others will naturally start feeling very fond of her. Flora looks up curiously, wondering if there is an even deeper meaning to her special power. The man begins to sweat nervously, struggling to find the right words to answer her question. He awkwardly admits there was a slight error in the parameters, making Flora feel very uneasy. Pressing his hands together, the man apologizes for a blunder made within the underworld's bureaucracy. Flora glares suspiciously, asking if blunders are a frequent occurrence or if he is hiding something. He nervously laughs it off, claiming the activation was meant to be a well-timed surprise instead. Checking his clipboard, the haloed man reassures Flora that no more errors exist in the system. He warns her to avoid getting involved with dangerous people right from the very beginning. He explains that those whose power repels the underworld are incredibly strong, eccentric, and highly unpredictable. Walking away, he cautions her that such powerful beings could eventually put her in great danger. Sunlight filters through the bedroom curtains as the dream ends, returning Flora to the waking world. Flora wakes up in her sun-drenched room, reaching out for her favorite white bunny plush. She playfully scolds the stuffed toy, jokingly accusing the bad girl of kicking her during sleep. With a determined pounce, Flora lunges across her bed to snuggle the soft plushie once more. A surprising, bouncy pian sound rings out as the white bunny suddenly leaps away from her. Flora chases the escaping toy across the room, shouting for Lola to wait until she finally catches it. Clutching the plushie tightly, Flora asks what is wrong while the toy struggles in her grasp. The white bunny hops away again, leaving Flora startled by its seemingly sentient and energetic behavior. Scrambling across the bed, Flora begs the bunny to wait as it disappears toward the floor. Flora peers under the furniture, hoping her new status ability will help her locate the hiding toy. She wonders if the system is failing because the bunny is hiding or perhaps just an animal. A sudden metallic clack sounds as the door opens and Melanie the maid greets her startled lady. Flora decides to test her status window on Melanie since it failed to work on the bunny. A blue status window appears for Melanie, detailing her high health and innate capacity for giving love. Reading the evaluation, Flora realizes Melanie is naturally fond of her and requires no extra effort. Melanie offers a gentle, encouraging smile as she prepares to start the young lady's morning routine. Beaming with happiness, Flora hugs Melanie's legs tightly while the maid confirms her willingness to help. A rhythmic squishing sound occurs as Carl affectionately pinches Flora's chubby cheeks with both hands. Carl laughs heartily, clearly delighted by how soft and adorable his younger sister feels. The silver-haired Duke enters the room and comments on how exceptionally cute Flora looks today. A loud ouch echoes as the blonde girl Elman delivers a sharp smack to Carl's head. While Carl whines about the pain, Elman ignores him to ask Flora if she is feeling all right. The Duke smiles warmly at the chaotic group, commanding everyone to take their seats for breakfast. Settling into his ornate chair, the Duke enjoys a quiet moment with a glass of wine. Flora excitedly brings up the upcoming festival, sparking immediate interest among her siblings at the table. With eyes wide and sparkling, the young girl shows her pure, unadulterated enthusiasm for the event. Taking a slow sip of wine, the Duke carefully considers his daughter's eager request to attend. He reminds her of the nosebleed she suffered during their last snowy outing, expressing fatherly concern. The Duke's expression darkens as he warns of potential kidnappers, making Flora sweat with sudden nervousness. Flora looks up sadly, asking exactly how old she needs to be to finally see the festival. She insists she will be safe with a knight like Papa, making the Duke struggle to resist. Holding an apple to her chest, Flora looks up with teary eyes and begs for his permission. The Duke faces an internal battle, torn between his duty to be strict and Flora's overwhelming cuteness. He lets out a thoughtful hum, his resolve visibly weakening under his daughter's pleading gaze.
A mental crack occurs as Flora reveals she specifically wanted to go to the festival with him.
The Duke's stern facade vanishes instantly, replaced by a joyful blush as he accepts the heartwarming invitation.
Her brothers agree that Flora will be perfectly safe if Papa stays by her side throughout.
Flora is left momentarily speechless, shocked that her desperate spur-of-the-moment plan actually worked so well.
Laughing joyfully, the Duke decides it is high time his daughter experienced the wonders of the world.
Flora takes a victorious bite of her apple, satisfied that her acting secured her a trip outside. A horse-drawn carriage makes a rhythmic clip-clop through a snowy path lined with blooming white flowers.
Inside the luxurious carriage, Flora sits beside her father, embarking on their special winter adventure together.
She looks out the window, sweating slightly from nerves as she realizes their journey is officially beginning.
The Duke chuckles softly while watching Flora, his heart full of happiness during their first outing.
Flora reflects on the past 7 years, realizing she never once asked her father to play before. She asks the Duke if he has ever visited the festival grounds in previous years. With a nostalgic smile, the Duke recalls visiting the event several times with her mother. The snowy town comes into view, decorated with colorful banners and bustling with market stalls.
A young child runs toward a smiling woman near a large snowman in the lively square.
Flora's face is pressed against the glass, her eyes wide with genuine amazement at the spectacle. The carriage arrives at the snowy festival grounds, where Flora cheers in pure excitement. Surrounded by a dense crowd, Flora clings tightly to the Duke to avoid being lost. Nearby commoners whisper nervously about the duchy's rumored youngest princess while cautioning each other. Hearing the fearful, hushed comments, Flora breaks into a nervous sweat during the walk. The Duke reassures his daughter as she reflects on her family's terrifyingly bad reputation. Fearful citizens scramble away, clearing a path for the Duke to carry Flora with Carl following. After their walk, the Duke promises Flora a special cake after explaining the festival's purpose. Carl eagerly describes the magnificent snow sculptures that define the kingdom's winter celebration. Kneeling to her level, the Duke asks Flora for her thoughts on the impressive seasonal displays. Flora stares ahead with wide eyes, completely captivated by the magical sights of the festival. A massive, beautifully crafted snow sculpture of a majestic deer looms over the snowy courtyard. Amazed by the craftsmanship, Flora learns from her father that these sculptures appear every year. Gasping in shock, Flora spots an enormous, intricate castle made entirely from packed white snow. The Duke watches his daughter's breathless reaction with a soft and satisfied expression. When the Duke considers bringing the sculpture home, Flora frantically begs him to leave it. Amused by her humble protests, the silver-haired Duke offers a charming and knowing smile. A warm welcome greets the group as they arrive at a local cafe for treats. Flora's eyes sparkle as the baker presents a table overflowing with cakes, cookies, and macarons. The Duke gently wipes cake from Flora's face while she happily devours her sweet dessert. Flora thoughtfully requests a takeout box to share the delicious treats with her siblings at home. Watching a blonde noblewoman exit, Flora is startled to hear she might be Elman's friend. Flora looks stunned, finding it hard to believe her sister Elman has any close friends. The Duke and Carl identify the girl as the second daughter of the Count Beck's family. They explain that she was a crown princess candidate until a dispute ended her engagement. Intrigued by the drama, Flora asks her brother to explain what caused the falling out. Carl reveals Elman used magic to spin the girl through the air, shocking little Flora.
The cafe staff hands over a pink cookie box filled with takeout for the family.
Flora's sincere praise for the food leaves the cafe employees feeling deeply honored and touched. Clutching her gift box, Flora hopes Elman and Robert will enjoy the treats just as much. Resting in the carriage, the Duke asks his daughter if she enjoyed their private outing. Flora notices an intense, sparkly expectation in her father's eyes that makes her feel pressured.
Realizing he wants to be the favorite, Flora beams and says she loved being with Papa.
Flora sighs internally, finding the constant battle for her family's affection to be quite exhausting. A lively parade band marches through the streets, playing rhythmic music for the cheering crowds. Flora and her father watch the magnificent parade from the comfort of their luxurious carriage window. Seeing the bustling festival firsthand makes Flora realize that leaving the mansion was the right choice. The scene shifts to the academy where a chorus of dramatic wailing fills the air. Elman and Robert sob hysterically while clinging to Flora, devastated to leave her for school. Despite her siblings' tears, Flora smiles peacefully, secretly relishing the thought of some quiet time.
Their mother urges the twins to get along at the academy while they promise summer visits.
The blonde twins vow to use spatial magic to return if Flora ever feels too lonely.
Dismissing the twins' drama, the mother mentions an important guest, prompting Robert to ask about Grandpa.
Flora and her siblings react with surprise as their mother confirms the impending arrival of Grandpa.
With petals falling, the twins wave a final, emotional goodbye as they depart for their studies.
Waving back with a calm smile, Flora celebrates her newfound freedom from her chaotic older siblings.
Back at the mansion, a maid informs the arriving guest that the mistress is currently busy.
The maid politely offers to escort the esteemed visitor to the drawing room to wait.
A voice echoes through the grand hall, announcing the presence of the Master of the Magic Tower. Entering the room, the blonde mother is surprised to find the powerful master waiting for them.
The Master of the Magic Tower, a long-haired man with a beard, warmly greets young Flora.
The Master of the Magic Tower mentions that the twins' mischief reputation has spread. Flora searches for Lola while her mother asks what is bothering her. The silver-haired Duke decides to join the search for the missing white rabbit. Hiding, Lola fears the Master of the Magic Tower will force her human transformation. Melanie reassures Flora that the knights are currently helping search for Lola.
Flora asks about the master, and Melanie confirms he left a moment ago.
Flora wonders how the master knew Lola was a rabbit without Melanie telling him. Flora and Melanie look up as a rhythmic sound echoes from the hallway. Lola the rabbit peeks through the glass of the large drawing room door.
Flora joyfully hugs Lola while Melanie expresses her relief that the rabbit was found. Melanie recalls a special gift that was recently delivered for the young mistress.
Flora is shocked to learn that the Crown Prince sent her a sudden gift.
Melanie hands the purple gift box to a beaming and highly curious Flora.
Flora opens the box, deciding to accept the Crown Prince's gift with gratitude. Admiring her reflection, Flora puts on the necklace while Lola watches with interest.
A close-up reveals a stunning red gem necklace resting against Flora's green dress.
Flora grabs Lola, but the rabbit looks startled by the sudden physical contact.
Flora falls with a kaya and a thump as a bright magical light flares.
A black-haired boy stands where the rabbit was, looking completely shocked and flustered. Stunned on the floor, Flora stares up at the mysterious new boy.
The boy clarifies that his name is Evan and he is not Lola.
Flora questions his black hair while Evan retorts with an annoyed and angry expression.
Evan yellingly insists he is a normal human mage and not a beastkin.
Flora demands to know why he was a rabbit, but Evan is dismissive. Evan points toward the necklace, indicating it was responsible for his sudden transformation.
He explains that the Crown Prince's gift contains an immense amount of mana. The necklace's aura was so powerful it forced Evan back into his human form.
With a poof, Evan transforms back into a rabbit, much to Flora's shock.
Flora looks down at the white rabbit, still trying to process Evan's explanation.
Flora is left speechless, asking if the rabbit just clearly muttered a curse word. Lola insults Flora's tiny mana capacity using telepathy, making Flora wince in pain. Flora cheers, delighted to finally have a magical mage rabbit as a playmate. Lola delivers a sharp kick to Flora's face with a frustrated bap. Flora lies dazed on the floor with spirals in her wide, shocked eyes.
Autumn leaves fall as a seasonal chill begins to settle over the grand estate. During tea, Flora tells the rabbit she wants to pursue her own path.
Flora admits she feels lonely being the only girl without a special tower. Inspired, Flora decides to learn swordsmanship since she lacks a specialty in magic. Flora presents her request to her father, leaving the Duke momentarily stunned. The silver-haired Duke reflects on how much his youngest daughter is already growing. He tells Flora to find Carl at the training grounds to ask for lessons.
Flora runs to the training grounds and calls out for her blonde brother Carl.
Carl joyfully lifts Flora up, surprised by her sudden visit to the training area.
Carl agrees to train her tomorrow morning if she can wake up earlier us.
The knights cheer as they announce the arrival of Lady Flora's first training day. The Duke commands his knights to support Flora's training with everything they have. Melanie wakes Flora early for her very first day of swordsmanship training with Carl.
Lola the rabbit scurries away while a sleepy Flora struggles to get out of bed.
Flora stands ready in her training vest, holding a large wooden training sword.
Flora focuses on the wooden sword, finding the weight to be surprisingly manageable.
Carl swings his heavy sword with focused intensity.
Little Flora watches in utter bewilderment as Carl effortlessly splits a sturdy wooden scarecrow in half.
Clutching her wooden sword, Flora feels a wave of anxiety while comparing herself to Carl's level.
With a determined hiya, Flora strikes the barrel, though the impact results in a dull thud. The knights erupt into enthusiastic cheers, celebrating Flora's very first strike on the training field. Flora looks back at the unscathed target, questioning if she can truly master the way of the sword. Completely drained, Flora leans against the stairs while Lola the rabbit welcomes her back from training.
Flora is caught off guard by Lola's nonchalant response to her visible state of physical exhaustion.
A massive arrow marks Flora's frustration as she yells out in a moment of overwhelmed emotion.
Back in his study, the silver-haired Duke asks Carl for an honest evaluation of Flora's progress.
Carl admits Flora lacks talent for the sword and suggests focusing on her protection instead. The Duke listens as Carl explains that Flora's zero athletic reflexes make training potentially dangerous.
They decide to prioritize building her basic physical strength while still allowing her some sword time.
The silver-haired Duke greets his daughter warmly, noticing she seems burdened by something after her training.
Flora admits she isn't suited for physical movement and asks to try learning something different.
The Duke and Carl are left speechless when Flora suddenly expresses a desire to learn cooking.
A small illustration depicts a young boy happily preparing a meal surrounded by fresh ingredients.
The family reflects on how a noble learning to cook is entirely unprecedented in their empire. If that is what Flora wants, the Duke promises to prepare everything for her immediately. High above the grand mansion, Flora's joyous thanks echo through the crisp autumn air. Melanie is moved by the Duke's endless love for his daughter as Flora receives new clothes.
Entering the massive new kitchen, Flora is amazed to see her parents went all out.
The Duke and blonde mother present the custom workspace, asking Flora if she likes the setup.
Overflowing with gratitude, Flora hugs her parents and thanks them for the wonderful gift and teacher.
The mother introduces Nia, a former palace pâtissier, who will serve as Flora's culinary instructor. The Duke and mother wave a fond goodbye, leaving Flora to begin her first cooking lesson.
Flora tells Nia she is honored to meet such a wonderful teacher in this beautiful kitchen.
Nia smiles warmly, accepting Flora's simple desire for fun as a wonderful reason to start cooking.
Before the lesson officially begins, Flora decides to activate her ability to view Nia's status window.
Nia's status screen reveals top-tier abilities and a sorrowful past involving her late husband's memories. Stunned by the unexpected evaluation, Flora realizes Nia was born with exceptionally good conditions. Stealing her resolve, Flora looks at her teacher and requests to try making cookies today. Nia agrees and gathers the necessary ingredients to begin the first official baking lesson. Concentrating hard, Flora whisks the batter while remembering that repetition is essential for making sweets. Nia explains that baking must be learned with the body before moving on to adding sugar.
Flora is distracted from her work when she spots Lola the rabbit peering through the window. Lola admits via telepathy that he came to observe the class, prompting Flora to question him.
Nia asks about the rabbit as Melanie offers to hold the pet during the lesson. Melanie lifts the white rabbit away from the window as Flora gives her the okay. Lola looks quite disgruntled as he is held securely by Melanie while the baking continues. Determined to impress the watching Evan, Flora begins pouring ingredients into her mixing bowl. The story pauses briefly as a purple-haired warrior stands ready for the next narrative chapter.
Flora gasps in genuine surprise as she presents a tray of her very first baked creations.
The tray is filled with expertly shaped cookies, including rabbits, swords, and intricate checkered designs. Melanie and Lola are both impressed, admitting that Flora did a great job for her first try. A dark shadow falls over Flora's face as she stares at her cookies with intense focus. Worrying that she messed up, Flora asks Nia why the cookies feel so unexpectedly soft. Nia reassures her that they will harden as they cool before being decorated with chocolate coating. Flora looks at her tray of treats with a soft, proud smile as the lesson concludes. Realizing she needs a cool breeze, Flora rushes toward the window to let the cookies harden instantly. A peaceful chirp sounds from small birds perched amongst the vibrant autumn leaves. Flora gasps in shock as several small birds dive toward her tray of freshly baked cookies. Flora yells in protest as the birds fly away with her hard-earned treats in their beaks.
Nia reassures a sad Flora while Melanie holds Lola, promising plenty of batter remains.
Flora presents a full basket of cookies as Nia concludes their successful first baking lesson. Nia admires a special pair of cookies shaped like two people holding hands. With a bright smile, Flora thanks Nia for teaching her how to bake today. Carrying her basket, Flora heads out while Nia and Melanie watch her go with smiles. Spotting David cleaning his sword, Flora calls out to the dark-haired boy with excitement. David looks up in surprise, hearing Lady Flora call his name from across the training area. Flora offers David a cookie, leaving him deeply moved by her thoughtful and personal gift. David bows in overwhelmed gratitude after tasting the delicious treat Flora made herself. A sudden rush of wind follows as David calls out to the departing Lady Flora. Peeking through the heavy doors, Flora asks if her father is currently inside his study. The Duke and his family stand gathered around his desk, looking solemn and focused. Flora asks her mother if she enjoyed the cookies while the blonde woman smiles warmly. Flora looks surprised to see her mother and Carl gathered together in the Duke's room.
The young mistress stands in disbelief, realizing her mother and brother are both present.
Memories of her family's legendary magical and martial prowess flash through Flora's mind. The silver-haired Duke and Carl reflect on the unfortunate timing of their necessary departure. Flora raises her fists with determination, insisting she will be perfectly fine while they are away. With a cheerful grin, Flora reveals she made special heart-shaped cookies for her beloved family. Flora presents 3 heart-shaped cookies specifically decorated for her mother, father, and brother. The blonde mother beams, declaring she wants to display the precious gift in her room.
The family shares a rare, joyful moment together while eating the treats Flora prepared.
Lying on his bed, human Evan reflects on his returning mana and imminent departure.
Evan stretches comfortably, admitting that lounging around the mansion isn't such a bad life.
A quiet moment of reflection passes as the black-haired boy stares at the ceiling.
Evan gazes at the family portrait, wondering what will become of Flora once he leaves. Memories of Flora's gentle affection and playfulness with her rabbit fill Evan's thoughts. He recalls Flora's constant joy and the funny moments they shared during her training days.
The scene shifts to the bright morning of the Subjugation Force's official departure.
High above the mansion, Flora calls out a final wish for everyone's safety.
A knight prepares his horse as the narrator explains their duty to hunt threatening monsters. Falling leaves mark the season as the Empire prepares for winter monster attacks.
The silver-haired Duke gives an optimistic thumbs up, promising to return home very soon.
The blonde mother pets Flora's head, telling her to stay healthy and trust Melanie.
Flora and Melanie wave as the knights gallop away from the estate toward the mountains. Flora stands alone as autumn leaves fall, feeling a sudden wave of quiet loneliness.
Melanie asks Flora what she would like to do now that the house is empty.
Melanie offers a reassuring look as Flora admits she feels a bit lonely.
The maid's warm smile and kind eyes offer comfort to the young mistress.
Melanie notes they have 2 days of peace together while the rest are away. Flora is annoyed by Lola's nonchalant attitude as the rabbit sits silently on the floor.
Flora excitedly asks Melanie if she would like to join her for a meal.
Melanie tells Flora to play in the garden with Lola while she finishes her chores.
Entering the grand indoor garden, Flora remarks on how much she has missed this place.
Flora and Lola settle in for a quiet moment surrounded by the garden's lush flowers.
A table is overflowing with delicious cakes, tarts, and a massive carrot cake.
Flora watches Lola eat, asking if he wants her to bake a carrot cake next.
Flora laughs with pure delight, expressing her happiness with a bright and radiant smile.
Flora leans on her hand while Lola the rabbit expresses his disdain for his current form.
Lola asks about black hair, leaving a bewildered Flora completely stunned and wide-eyed with confusion.
While relaxing in the garden, Lola mentions he will soon be turning 10 years old.
Lola describes his difficult childhood in the slums, living alone after his grandmother passed away.
Flora is glad Lola found a home, though the rabbit secretly doubts his benefactor's kindness.
Curious about his abilities, Flora asks Lola how much mana he can actually use.
Flora suddenly realizes that she has never taken the time to measure her own mana capacity.
Feeling bored, Lola decides to attempt measuring Flora's mana to see what she is capable of.
Flora watches with intense anticipation as Lola prepares to evaluate her hidden magical strength.
Annoyed by Lola's vague answer, Flora demands a real and specific measurement of her power.
Lola is internally shocked, realizing Flora possesses an infinite spring of magic that never runs dry.
While eating cake, Flora asks if Lola is referring to the magical status windows.
Flora explains she was warned to be extremely careful around rare people with hidden status windows.
Taking a bite of her food, Flora tries to recall more details about these mysterious individuals.
Flora decides to stop worrying about it, stabbing her cake with a frustrated huff.
Lola reflects on rumors regarding the next master of the Magic Tower amidst falling autumn leaves.
Lola sits quietly on the table, his small rabbit form hiding a very deep secret.
Flora enjoys her drink while Lola watches her with a strange and lingering intensity.
The grand mansion stands majestic and silent under the vast, clear morning sky.
Sunlight pours through the large windows, illuminating the quiet and empty room.
Flora sleeps peacefully in her bed, completely unaware of the visitors standing nearby.
The black-haired boy Evan steps out onto the balcony as the cool night wind blows.
Evan gazes out over the estate, standing tall in his true human form at last.
Evan looks back toward the sleeping Flora, his red eyes glowing with a mysterious light.
Evan smiles softly, noting how peacefully Flora is sleeping before he prepares to depart.
In a sudden swirl of purple magical energy, Evan vanishes from the balcony into thin air.
High above the landscape, a majestic magical tower sits nestled within a grand floating palace. A silver-haired man with a goatee lies in bed, looking tired and slightly annoyed.
The man grumbles as Evan arrives in his room through a glowing purple magic circle.
Evan greets the man disrespectfully, calling the powerful master an old man.
The Tower Master chides Evan for his rudeness, calling the black-haired boy a confusing brat.
Evan asks about the next Tower Master, wondering if he has finally earned the prestigious title.
The silver-haired man admits Evan figured it out, calling the boy's sharp intuition quite unpleasant. Evan yells in frustration, demanding to know why he was turned into a rabbit.
The tower merely sighs, remaining unbothered by the boy's angry outburst and complaints. Evan demands an explanation, suspecting the man is angry about his delayed return to the tower. The Tower Master explains that true potential is only revealed when a human is pushed to limits.
He asks if the mansion was comfortable, noting Evan's mana precision has significantly improved since then. Evan looks down in somber reflection, beginning to recall the harsh days of his early life. Years ago, a young Evan struggled to survive in the slums using his raw fire magic. In the crowded streets, young Evan manifested water magic while others watched from the background. Desperate for food, young Evan used his magical power to pluck an apple from a tree. The Cloak Tower Master appeared before Evan, offering a hand after sensing his immense potential.
Young Evan stood alone, surrounded by a swirling and chaotic vortex of his own mana.
The silver-haired man watched the boy closely, deciding to take him in that very day.
Now, the master calls Evan a lazy slob, while the boy argues he was overworked.
Evan listens silently as the weight of the Tower Master's explanation begins to sink in. The man explains that every hardship was designed to make Evan's immense talent bloom quickly. Evan clenches his teeth in frustration, realizing he cannot argue against the truth of the matter. The silver-haired Tower Master mentions that his retirement is finally drawing near. A quiet, starry night follows the Master's declaration of his impending departure.
Sunlight illuminates the grand entrance of the mansion on a bright, peaceful morning.
Searching through the garden, the white-haired Flora worries that Lola is missing again.
Melanie laments the rabbit's absence after Flora worked so hard to bake a cake.
Flora modestly admits that Nia helped her prepare the delicious-looking treat. The brown-haired maid suggests they eat their portions first while saving some for Lola. Flora eats a slice, hoping her family returns safely from their subjugation mission tonight. She wonders what games they should play today to pass the quiet hours.
Flora and Melanie enjoy their tea and cake surrounded by the garden's lush blooms.
Back inside, Flora notices that the rabbit is still nowhere to be found. Flora sits alone on her plush sofa, looking quite sad and lonely without company. Her gaze drifts to the lone slice of cake kept under a glass dome. Annoyed, she declares she will eat the whole cake herself if Lola doesn't appear. A black-haired boy appears, and Flora is shocked to recognize him as human Evan.
Flora is bewildered, noting that while his face is new, his presence feels familiar.
Walking toward her, Evan confirms that he won't be turning into a rabbit anymore. Flora realizes his blunt attitude is exactly the same as when he was a rabbit. Evan asks if the cake is for him, but a huffy Flora refuses to answer. An awkward silence fills the room as the two sit together in their chibi forms.
Flora scolds Evan for not using a fork now that he has human hands.
Looking at his blushing face, Flora decides that Evan is actually quite cute when flustered. Taking a bite, the black-haired boy asks if the mansion hired a new pastry chef. Flora watches with intense anticipation, waiting for him to realize who actually made it. Chibi Evan enjoys his treat while Chibi Flora watches him with a very serious expression.
Flora beams with pride, revealing she specifically prepared the cake for him.
She explains she finally chopped the carrots so he couldn't pick them out anymore. Evan is genuinely impressed to learn that Flora baked the delicious cake herself. Flora reminds him of her earlier promise, though Evan hadn't expected it so soon. Peeking over the sofa, Flora watches the black-haired boy continue to enjoy his snack. Overwhelmed by the thoughtful gift, Evan eats with tears of pure joy in his eyes. Seeing his delighted reaction, Flora flashes a bright and radiant smile. Flora looks at Evan with a sudden, serious expression as a thought occurs to her.
Evan offers a small smile, promising to come by and visit her sometimes.
Flora is thrilled, thinking their relationship is special now that he can teleport to Vivit. Evan cheekily reminds her that they were already close as pet and master. Flora realizes that with the rabbit spell lifted, she might see his status window. The black-haired boy asks if she is still unable to see his hidden status. Flora is confused, wondering what he means by his status being visible or not.
Evan looks at her calmly, his red eyes glowing with a mysterious and quiet intensity. The two sit together at the ornate table, reflecting on their strange new dynamic.
Flora focuses her power, hoping to finally see the status of her mysterious companion. Evan leans back, watching the white-haired girl with a cool and collected gaze. In their chibi forms, Flora tries to activate her power while Evan watches curiously. Flora is stunned to realize she still cannot see any status window for him. She recalls her teacher's warning that individuals with hidden status windows are extremely dangerous. Flora wonders if Evan's power is truly immense enough to repel her underworld abilities. Looking at him, she decides he doesn't look dangerous, just perhaps a bit spoiled.
Evan notices her staring and asks if there is something stuck on his face.
Flora continues to scrutinize the black-haired boy, her curiosity about his secrets growing deeper. Evan prepares to depart, promising the white-haired Flora that he will return soon. Surprised by the sudden request, the black-haired boy looks up as Flora demands a promise. Flora impatiently insists on a pinky swear, while Evan reluctantly agrees to her terms. In their adorable chibi forms, the pair finalize their pact with a formal and solemn promise. Sensing someone approaching, Flora frantically shoves Evan toward the exit with a panicked and hurried expression. Flora urges Evan to hide, but the boy confidently reminds her of his magical teleportation. Evan smirks as he begins to vanish within a swirling and vibrant vortex of purple magic.
Melanie enters the grand room, apologizing to Flora for leaving her alone for so long.
Flora is left completely stunned and wide-eyed by the speed of Evan's magical departure.
The brown-haired Melanie is surprised to find that the cake plate has been completely cleaned.
Melanie assumes the rabbit finished the treat while Flora hides the true identity of her visitor.
A sudden knock at the door announces the arrival of David with an important report. Flora grants the knight permission to enter while Melanie watches with a curious and attentive gaze. David kneels respectfully, informing the lady that the subjugation team's return has been delayed.
Flora expresses deep concern as David explains that monster activity has significantly increased this year.
A strategic map illustrates the vast mountain territory where the knights are currently searching for threats. David reassures the worried girl, confident that her powerful family remains safe despite the difficult mission. The knight encourages Flora to rest, promising that everyone will return home safely very soon.
Melanie comforts Flora, reminding her of the Duke's legendary strength against any monster threat.
David and Melanie bid Flora a peaceful night before departing from her quiet, candlelit room. While being tucked into bed, Flora asks Melanie if monsters have ever breached the manor.
Melanie recounts a past incident that occurred when Lord Carloman was only a small baby.
Flora is shocked to hear a story of a monster once infiltrating the estate grounds. David explains how a past subjugation mission left the mansion vulnerable with only a few guards.
Melanie describes how the Duke arrived just in time to dispatch the intruder with ease.
An illustration depicts the Duke cleaving through multiple monsters with a single, massive, and glowing strike. The Chibi attendants marvel at the Duke's power, calling him a terrifying and effective human blender.
Alone in her bed, Flora worries that these massive monster outbreaks might happen in cycles.
Flora asks Melanie and David to remain close to her door throughout the entire mat.
The knight and maid wish her sweet dreams before finally closing the bedroom doors.
Flora sits awake in her dimly lit room, hoping her family stays safe during the mission.
She notices a book titled Monsters That Blight Our Lives and decides to read it. Flora opens the large volume, curious to learn more about the history within its pages.
The text describes monsters as filthy, harmful creatures that raid villages and burn homes.
It highlights House Pacey's noble duty to protect the Empire from these overwhelming and dangerous threats.
Flora reflects on the difficult work required to defeat all the monsters in the Northern Mountains.
She looks at the graphic illustrations of the creatures with a disgusted and repulsed expression.
The book details the Saurus, a monster that utilizing its own scales as deadly weapons. Flora is horrified to read about how the creature traps people with its long tongue.
A sudden and sharp noise startles Flora, causing her to jump and look around.
She calls out for Melanie, her heart racing as she gazes toward the closed door.
An eerie silence is broken by a strange and mysterious sound echoing within the bedroom.
A piercing screech rings out suddenly, leaving the white-haired girl trembling in pure terror.
A massive shadow looms behind the curtains as a threat approaches the balcony window.
Flora gasps in horror, recognizing the terrifying creature lurking just outside the large glass doors.
The monster growls from the darkness, flicking its long, wet tongue with a hungry intent. The Saurus reveals its horrific blooming mouth, filled with several rows of razor-sharp teeth. Glass shatters as the monster breaks into the room with a terrifying and sudden roar. Paralyzed by shock, Flora drops her book as the beast lunges into the bedroom. She stares in absolute terror, realizing the nightmare from her book has become a reality.
Flora recalls the book's advice to use distractions against the blind and sound-tracking Saurus.
Trembling, she covers her mouth to remain silent while planning a quick distraction.
Flora looks around her empty bed, realizing she has nothing within reach to throw.
Desperation sets in as she reads that survival is highly unlikely without a weapon.
Flora briefly imagines a guard's protection before realizing she is completely alone and defenseless.
Panicked and clutching her mouth, she decides she must escape the room immediately.
A soft scuff sounds as the terrified girl attempts to sneak toward the exit.
A piercing screech sounds as the blue monster reveals itself inside the grand bedroom.
Flora freezes in terror, praying the creature will not sense her quiet movements.
A sudden, loud clatter rings out as Flora accidentally bumps against the wooden furniture.
The monster lets out a wet gurgle, opening its terrifying, multi-layered, blooming mouth.
Heavy, rhythmic thuds echo as the massive beast charges toward the source of the noise.
A sharp whoosh sounds as the creature's powerful tail sweeps through the air behind her.
Huddled on the floor, the white-haired girl sobs quietly, completely paralyzed by her fear.
Flora stops breathing as the monster's head pauses mere inches away from her face.
A low growl vibrates through the room as the beast exposes its many teeth.
A swift whoosh sounds as the monster suddenly spins its massive blue body around.
Shadowed by the beast, Flora continues to tremble, unsure of her next move.
Determination flickers in her red eyes as she realizes it's all or nothing.
A soft slide sounds as Flora prepares her feet to make a sudden dash.
A series of quick thuds sound as Chibi Flora runs desperately for her life. A sharp snap sounds as the monster lashes its long pink tongue toward her.
Flora reaches for the large doors, desperately hoping she can escape the room in time.
A brilliant purple magic circle appears, drawing the screaming monster into a powerful vortex. Shocked and wide-eyed, Flora watches the impossible magical event unfolding right behind her.
A loud whirring sounds as the creature is sucked into the swirling magical void.
Flora stares at the swirling energy, her heart racing as the deadly danger finally vanishes.
Turning around with a sigh of relief, she realizes she is finally safe from harm.
Evan stands before her, a powerful and calm presence in the now quiet room.
Relieved tears stream down Flora's face as she looks up at her unexpected savior. Flora lunges forward, hugging Evan tightly as she finally lets out her suppressed fear.
In their chibi forms, Flora thanks Evan profusely while the black-haired boy looks flustered. Evan asks about her solitude, and Flora explains the guards are stationed outside. Evan notes her unusual honesty, finding her sincere gratitude quite pleasant to hear.
Flora beams with a radiant smile, feeling safe and happy in Evan's protective company. Melanie enters the room with a candle, concerned by the loud crashing noise she heard. The maid explains the Duke's wish for her to eat well and sleep soundly.
Evan watches from the shadows, declaring himself a more reliable guard than the knights. A close-up of the White Rabbit shows him looking quite proud and very determined.
Melanie notices Lola has returned and promises to bring the rabbit some food immediately.
A delicious plate of steak and carrots is prepared for their late-night garden meal.
Flora offers her food to Evan, who happily accepts the extra portion of meat.
The black-haired boy takes a large, satisfying bite of the tender, grilled steak.
A soft chewing sound indicates Evan's delight as he enjoys the mansion's delicious hospitality.
The pair enjoys their quiet dinner together, their new dynamic feeling much more comfortable.
Sunlight hits the Pacey mansion as days pass without the subjugation team's expected return. Flora looks out the window, worried about her family's unusually long and dangerous mission.
Holding Lola, Flora decides to plan a grand welcome for their eventual homecoming tonight.
Chibi Flora and Chibi Lola agree that the returning family will surely love her surprise.
Melanie suggests they prepare sweet macarons to celebrate the mission's successful and safe end.
A soft whirring sounds as Flora diligently whisks a bowl of batter for her surprise.
In the kitchen, Flora asks Teacher Nia for guidance as they begin making macaron shells.
Chibi Flora explains that they will use raspberry and lemon for the red and yellow fillings.
After adding blue pigment, the white-haired girl prepares the third batch of colorful macaron batter.
Flora thanks her teacher warmly while they continue mixing their ingredients in perfect harmony. Trays of vibrant, colorful macarons are finally finished, and Nia praises Flora's impressive dedication.
Flora excitedly plans to gift the treats to the brave returning members of the subjugation squad.
Later, Flora shows Melanie the neatly stocked gift boxes prepared for the long-awaited homecoming.
Holding a small box, the white-haired girl smiles softly while thinking of her special friend.
Flora presents a gift to Evan, who looks at the small box with quiet curiosity.
Evan is genuinely surprised to learn that Flora handmade the colorful macarons just for him.
The black-haired boy smiles brightly, noting how wonderful the sweet treats look and smell.
Evan promises to savor the gift later while Flora thanks him for his constant companionship. Chibi Evan jokingly anticipates a lecture from his guardian rather than a warm, worried welcome home.
A soft whoosh sounds as Flora waves goodbye to the boy before he magically departs. Melanie's voice rings out across the estate, announcing the triumphant return of the subjugation team.
Overjoyed, Flora runs down the grand staircase to finally reunite with her beloved family.
The blonde-haired Duchess greets her daughter with open arms and a radiant, loving smile.
The family reunites as Flora's parents and brother apologize profusely for leaving her alone.
Carloman pats Flora's head, promising never to leave his precious little sister behind again. Reunited at last, the powerful Duke leads his happy family back into the Grand Manor.
A magnificent feast is laid out on the table to celebrate the team's successful mission.
The knights are surprised and delighted by the festive atmosphere awaiting them in the dining hall.
Flora is momentarily overwhelmed as her doting family members all offer her food at once.
Her father, mother, and brother playfully compete to feed her while Flora laughs in protest. Noticing the pile of gift boxes, the curious Duchess asks about the purpose of the presents.
Flora beams with pride as she prepares to distribute her handmade gifts to everyone present.
The girl presents the macarons to the knights, hoping to cheer them up after their mission.
David and the other knights are deeply moved by Flora's thoughtful and delicious handmade tokens.
The orange-haired knight is left speechless by the incredible taste of the young lady's macarons. The Duchess praises Flora's hard work, making the young girl feel incredibly happy and appreciated.
As the night deepens, Chibi Carloman suggests it is time for Flora to finally get some rest.
Carloman carries his sleepy sister to her room, promising to stay by her side all night.
While tucking her in, the blonde-haired brother looks forward to playing with Flora the next day.
Carloman reassures Flora, explaining they have identified and solved the cause of the monster outbreak.
A soft pat sounds as Carloman praises his sister's maturity, calling her the coolest sibling.
Years pass in a blur as Flora grows older, eventually reaching the age of 11.
During her 11th winter, Flora reflects on how Evan still visits her late at mint.
Standing on her balcony, the older Flora gazes at the snowy landscape under the starlit sky.
A warm cloak is draped over her shoulders as a familiar voice warns her of the cold.
Flora turns around in surprise, her eyes lighting up as she recognizes her frequent nocturnal visitor.
Now 13, the tall and handsome Evan stands before her with a calm and refined presence.
Chibi Evan teases Flora for staring at his face, causing the white-haired girl to become flustered.
Evan mentions that his magical skills are being recognized despite his young age of 13. The boy explains he has been busy with magic research and offers Flora a special tool.
Flora looks at the small gray stone in her palm, wondering what kind of item it is.
Evan explains the stone acts as a portable fireplace that activates when she chants a command.
Eager to try it out, Flora holds the stone firmly and loudly commands it to fire.
Chibi Flora is confused when nothing happens, while Chibi Evan tries to stifle a mischievous laugh.
Realizing she was being teased, a frustrated Flora shouts at the laughing Evan for his prank.
Flora gazes in awe at the glowing red stone, wondering about its mysterious properties.
Chibi Evan presents the warm stone to Chibi Flora to keep her comfortable during winter.
After explaining the stone's use, Evan bids Flora a polite goodnight and departs.
A soft shimmer fills the air as the scene transitions away from the moonlit balcony.
Flora smiles contentedly, feeling the comforting warmth of the red stone against her cheek.
A tall, white-haired man in purple robes questions Evan about taking a magic tool. Evan dismisses the older man's teasing suggestions, insisting that Flora is merely a friend.
The white-haired man beckons the boy closer, seemingly prepared to deliver a stern lesson.
Evan hesitantly approaches while the older man playfully calls him a truly insolent brat. A heavy thud sounds as the tall man suddenly pulls the black-haired boy forward.
Evan's eyes widened in shock as a sudden, intense burst of magical energy erupts.
The older man is stunned, realizing Evan reflexively deflected his powerful, high-level magic attack.
Evan quickly retreats from the room while the white-haired man ponders the boy's growth.
Standing before her snowy mansion, Flora announces her departure for the day's royal visit. A bright magical circle appears as Flora's family waves a fond farewell to her.
A soft light fades as Flora arrives at her destination with a pleasant smile. An attendant welcomes Lady Flora, leading her toward the waiting blonde-haired crown prince.
A soft splash sounds from a nearby fountain as Flora enters the magnificent palace garden.
Louis waves enthusiastically, greeting Flora as she enters the beautiful, glass-enclosed conservatory.
Flora is momentarily speechless, wondering if the prince created this stunning garden himself.
Realizing her outburst, a flustered Flora apologizes for her casual habits inside the palace.
Chibi Louise laughs off her concerns, ensuring the white-haired girl feels completely at ease. The pair walks together through the flowers as Louis reassures her about her reaction.
Flora stops in wonder, admiring a massive bouquet of glowing blue ice roses.
Chibi Flora questions the immense mana required to maintain such a grand magical garden display.
Chibi Louis explains that his magical ice never melts, making maintenance effortless and simple.
They approach a massive blue mushroom ice sculpture sitting atop the lush green grass.
The blonde prince smiles, inviting Flora to touch the unique magical ice formation.
Flora is amazed to find that the magical ice feels incredibly soft and smooth. Flora reflects on the past, noting how the prince used to be much more depressed.
Louis offers a natural, radiant smile, showing he is truly changed for the better.
Flora quickly hides her thoughts, insisting to the curious boy that nothing is wrong.
A close-up shows Flora's focused expression as she observes the prince's newfound confidence.
Louis looks calm and refined as he gazes at the glowing blue roses nearby.
Flora hopes the prince's self-esteem continues to improve toward an even better future evaluation.
Louis leads Flora toward a warm spot he specially prepared for their outdoor tea.
Flora presents a basket, happily explaining she brought some of her handmade sweets along.
Chibi Louis is delighted to see the Sables, noting how much he loves Flora's baking.
Louis explains he placed a warming spell around the table for her comfort.
A maid serves the pair as Flora marvels at the mysterious localized magical warmth.
A soft hum sounds as Flora tests the invisible boundary of the prince's magic.
Flora is surprised and touched to learn that Louis personally prepared this for her.
A soft pouring sound occurs as Flora privately admits she actually prefers hot chocolate.
The maid continues pouring tea as Louis watches the white-haired girl with a smile.
Louis takes a sip of his tea, looking quite pleased with the elegant atmosphere.
Flora prepares to try the tea, her expression a mix of politeness and hesitation.
A series of gulps sound as Flora is horrified by the tea's bitter taste.
Flora maintains a strained, forced smile, desperately trying to hide her true reaction.
The girl politely lies about the tea being delicious, much to the prince's delight. Chibi Flora notes that the bitter tea is a special blend from a neighboring country.
Flora hums softly while trying to think of a new topic for their conversation.
The white-haired girl decides to ask the prince about his recent magical training progress. Louis explains he can now create much more elaborate and detailed ice sculptures than before.
With a bright, confident smile, the blonde prince asks Flora if she would like a demonstration.
Flora gasps in awe as Louis magically conjures a beautiful, crystalline blue ice teacup.
A playful wink follows the impressive display as the prince shows off his magical growth. Louis admits he practiced this specifically to show Flora once he finally mastered the technique.
The prince creates a glowing blue shard, leaving the young girl looking completely shocked.
A shimmering light fills the air as Flora happily accepts the unique magical ice crystal.
Flora gazes intensely at the cold, glowing object resting safely within her small palms.
Louis watches her reaction with a satisfied expression while continuing to sip his tea.
Later, Flora writes at her desk, wondering if she should open a sweet shop someday. Surrounded by cupcakes, the red-dressed girl outlines her ambitious business plans on a document.
Flora wonders if she should focus on developing and selling her unique dessert recipes instead.
Chibi Flora imagines supplying various cafes with her handmade parfaits, pancakes, and fruitcakes.
A sudden, loud shout about building a snowman startles Flora from her deep professional daydream.
Flora looks out from her balcony as her siblings loudly debate about having a snowball fight.
Outside, her brothers argue playfully while remembering when Flora once collapsed in the snow.
Leaning over the railing, Flora curiously asks her siblings what they are doing in the garden. Her older brother waves enthusiastically, loudly inviting the white-haired girl to join their winter games. Having returned from the academy, Elman and Robert eagerly wait for Flora to come play.
Flora prepares for the cold, excited to finally have a long-awaited snowball fight with them.
A quick click sounds as the girl opens her door to find her eldest brother waiting.
Flora greets Carl, who has grown into a responsible adult helping with their father's work.
The tall, blonde-haired Carloman smiles warmly, asking his sister where she is headed so quickly. Carloman suggests sneaking away from his duties to enjoy the snowy day playing with Flora.
They walk toward the garden where Robert and Elman are rolling a massive, growing snowball.
Carloman laughs at the impressive size of the snowman base his younger siblings have created. Determined not to lose, Carloman suggests that he and Flora work together on the head.
A soft crunch sounds as Flora diligently packs snow together to help build their masterpiece.
Together, the pair works in perfect tandem to roll the heavy head of the snowman. Flora raises two small branches, cheering happily as she prepares the final arms for it. With a quick lift, Carloman easily places the large snowball head onto the waiting base. A triumphant shout rings out as the siblings admire their finished, slightly lopsided snowman.
Chibi Robert beams with pride, noting how wonderful their collaborative snowy creation turned out.
A gentle pat sounds as Carloman brushes the loose snow off his sister's white hair.
Elman teases her sister, pointing out the pile of snow that accumulated during her hard work.
The doting siblings agree that the natural waves in Flora's hair make her look incredibly cute.
A soft poke to her cheek follows as they claim Flora strongly resembles their mother.
Chibi Robert's attention shifts to a distant carriage arriving at the Duke's snow-covered mansion.
A messenger in a dark suit steps out, holding a formal letter for the Pacey family.
Eager to investigate, the curious siblings pull a reluctant Flora along to see the visitor.
The grand, snow-covered residence of Duke Pacey stands silent under the bright winter sky.
The messenger sighs nervously, wishing the Emperor had sent this delivery via a magic portal.
A cold chill runs down his spine as he realizes the famous siblings are watching him.
Peeking from behind a pillar, the children observe the messenger carrying a mysterious sealed invitation. The terrified man imagines Carloman as a blood-soaked tyrant and Elman as a cruel socialite. He further envisions Robert as a pyromaniac who burns any noble boys approaching his sister. Finally, he imagines Flora as a vicious princess, his imagination fueling his mounting, visible dread.
Shaking with fear, the messenger hurries toward the door to complete his supposedly dangerous mission.
The black-haired messenger trembles, desperately wanting to deliver the invitation and escape.
A soft thud sounds as the messenger exits the mansion, relieved his duty is done.
Walking away, the man resolves to resign rather than return to such a place. The messenger freezes as the imposing Pacey siblings suddenly loom behind the young girl. The blonde brothers stare intensely, their intimidating presence causing the man visible distress. A panicked shout rings out as the messenger bows deeply before the noble children. The terrified man frantically takes his leave, rushing away from the seemingly dangerous mansion.
Flora's brothers look on with boredom, unimpressed by the messenger's sudden, hasty departure.
Flora calls out after the retreating man, her voice stopping him in his tracks.
Smiling brightly, the white-haired girl offers the messenger warm encouragement for his future work.
The man's eyes widen in horror, shocked that she somehow knew his private thoughts.
A cold chill takes hold as he concludes the youngest Pacey daughter is a witch.
A frantic scream echoes as the messenger sprints away from the mansion at top speed.
The blonde siblings watch the display with confusion, while Flora offers a mischievous smile.
Later, a voice asks Flora if she can truly read the hearts of others.
Louis sips his tea elegantly, watching the white-haired girl with a calm, expectant expression.
Flora quickly dismisses the notion, explaining she simply noticed the messenger looked quite exhausted.
Privately, the girl breathes a sigh of relief that the prince didn't become suspicious.
A soft slide sounds as Flora pushes a black gift box toward the blonde prince.
Louis admits he'll be lonely, but understands her father thinks it's too early for her debut.
The prince notes that Flora is frail and the social world is full of dangers.
Chibi Louis explains how political power struggles often put young noble children in direct harm's way.
Flora's attention shifts as she spots a familiar black-haired boy in the palace garden.
Louis follows her gaze as she identifies the visitors as members of the Magic Tower.
Standing with the mages, Evan's back is turned to the pair as they watch him.
Flora's eyes sparkle as she confirms that the boy is indeed her friend Evan. The young girl is delighted to unexpectedly encounter the black-haired boy at the Imperial Palace.
Louis smiles, offering to show Flora a special birthday preparation before they continue their tea.
Flora eagerly agrees, suggesting they find a high vantage point to view the palace grounds.
The pair walks through the grand conservatory, their steps echoing softly across the polished floors.
Reaching a balcony, Flora looks out at the breathtaking display prepared for the prince's party.
The white-haired girl gasps, amazed by the sheer number of vibrant flowers blooming in winter.
A distant view reveals the majestic, snow-dusted palace tower where the two children are standing. Louis explains the magical nature of the flowers, promising even more for the actual banquet.
They stand together at the railing, enjoying the serene beauty of the winter garden below.
Louis reveals he has invited a spirit summoner to fill the garden with magical light. The prince explains that since local summoners are rare, they are bringing one from the east. Flora reflects on the different cultures of the continents, curious about the eastern continent's beauty.
A soft, shimmering view depicts a tranquil village in the east, existing in perfect natural harmony.
Overcome with jealousy, Flora admits she desperately wishes her father would let her attend. With newfound determination, the girl decides to beg the Duke one final time for permission. Back at the mansion, the white-haired Duke Pacey focuses intently on his important documents. A warm welcome greets Flora as she enters her father's study later that afternoon. Flora offers her most charming smile, preparing to convince her doting father to change his mind. Running to his side, Flora begins describing the wonderful things Louis planned for the party. The Duke listens patiently as his daughter excitedly recounts the prince's elaborate birthday preparations. Chibi Duke watches with amusement as Flora clenches her fists, begging to be allowed to go. The girl's eyes sparkle with excitement as she waits for her father's final decision. The Duke relents, but only if she promises to stay close to her older brothers.
Flora joyfully hugs her father, promising to follow his strict rules at the upcoming banquet.
The white-haired Duke asks Carloman to watch over Flora during the Crown Prince's upcoming party. Carloman assures his father they will keep their visit brief while ensuring Flora remains safe. Smiling warmly, the blonde-haired Carloman promises his younger sister they will have a wonderful time together. Lying back on her bed, Flora cheers with pure joy over finally being allowed to attend.
Melanie enters the room, delivering the specific books about the eastern and western continents Flora requested.
A soft click sounds as a visitor enters, cautioning the white-haired girl not to stay up late.
Evan suddenly appears, startling Flora while questioning her sudden, intense interest in the eastern continent.
Holding a book, the black-haired boy leans in and asks Flora if she wants to see spirits. Flora excitedly admits she has never seen one and imagines how beautiful they must truly be. Evan offers to take her immediately, leaving the young girl completely stunned by the sudden invitation. A brilliant flash of light fills the room as Evan takes Flora's hand to begin their journey. Flora shouts in surprise as she suddenly finds herself standing on a high cliff overlooking a forest. A massive, shimmering waterfall thunders down the side of a lush, green mountain in the distance. Nestled high within the ancient trees, a unique wooden structure stands overlooking the vibrant emerald landscape. Looking over the valley, Flora lets out a long, amazed shout at the breathtaking beauty below. Evan confirms they have indeed arrived in the eastern continent, watching Flora's stunned, happy reaction.
Small, glowing blue wisps begin to emerge as the pair walks through the magical, starlit forest.
A tiny floating spirit drifts toward Flora's face, causing the white-haired girl to gasp in wonder. Flora gazes at the glowing entity, realizing with excitement that she is finally seeing a wind spirit. Evan notes they are lucky to find spirits so easily, suggesting a summoner must be nearby.
Surrounded by shimmering light, Flora smiles brightly while holding a tiny, glowing spirit in her palms.
Time passes as the scene shifts toward the final preparations for the highly anticipated imperial banquet.
In the kitchen, the brown-haired Nia asks Flora if she is excited about the prince's party.
Nia smiles warmly, noting that rumors of the grand event have even reached the common people.
The kind baker suggests making a special dessert she once perfected while working at the palace.
Flora listens intently as Nia proposes baking a traditional blueberry pie for the special occasion.
Nia explains the pie was a favorite of her late husband and the current emperor years ago.
Flora curiously asks about Nia's husband, glad to see the woman can finally speak of him.
Nia admits she hasn't spoken of him before, while Flora offers her a gentle, supportive look. The older woman reflects on how long it has been since she shared memories of her past. Flora encourages Nia to continue, eager to learn more about the man who meant so much.
Nia holds her brooch, remembering her husband as the most wonderful person she had ever known.
A flashback shows a younger, blushing Nia and a handsome man in a dark military uniform.
The brown-haired man proudly displays a freshly baked blueberry pie he made after learning from Nia.
Back in the present, Nia finishes her story and Flora agrees to help with the bacon.
Flora emerges later, dressed for the party and holding a beautifully wrapped gift box for Louis.
Evan startles the girl, jokingly asking if the pie is for him instead of his carrot cake.
Flora firmly protects the special blueberry pie, explaining it is an important gift for the imperial palace.
After a brief argument, Flora promises the black-haired boy a carrot cake next time if he waits.
Evan remarks on the banquet scale, noting the involvement of spirit summoners and the magic tower.
The boy states he has no interest in attending such a flashy event himself, looking quite bored.
Flora asks if commoner mages are only there to perform, wondering why Evan won't join them.
Evan explains that commoners aren't usually invited to noble parties before handing Flora a mysterious red box.
Flora takes the gift, confirming it is indeed intended for the Crown Prince's special birthday celebration.
Inside the box, a pair of elegant white silk gloves with gold trim rests on the lining.
Evan explains the gloves are designed to stay breathable while protecting the hands of an ice maid. Chibi Flora is deeply moved by how thoughtful and practical Evan's birthday gift for the prince is. A sudden voice calls out Flora's name, causing both children to look toward the grand entrance.
Evan waves goodbye, telling the white-haired girl to be careful as he makes his quiet exit.
A click sounds as a stunning, blonde-haired noblewoman in a black and red dress finally arrives.
Agnes laughs while crushing Flora in a hug as Elman grumbles about the overwhelming reaction.
Elman and Agnes debate Flora's cuteness, concluding she looks exceptionally radiant for today's grand event.
A sudden, sweeping saw sounds as the majestic white palace looms under the evening sky.
The Duke Pacey family stands together in their formal attire, ready to enter the imperial banquet.
Belle, an imperial mage, offers a warm welcome to the family as Flora recognizes her friend. Agnes and Belle discuss the frantic palace preparations required for the Crown Prince's landmark birthday celebration. The white-haired Duke instructs his elder children to greet the Emperor while Elman watches over Flora. The family splits up, walking through the palace halls toward their respective duties and destinations.
Elman explains the spirit summoner schedule to Flora, though she questions where he gets his information.
Looking over the blooming ice flowers, Flora feels a sense of anticipation for the palace's surprises.
Agnes agrees to Elman's suggestion, leaning in as Flora holds her gifts for the royal family.
The three blonde and white-haired siblings stroll across a balcony framed by shimmering magical winter lilies.
Flora and Elman admire the intricate ice flowers, marveling at the Crown Prince's incredible magical talent. Flora's attention shifts as she realizes soft snowflakes have begun to drift through the palace air.
Agnes and Elman lead Flora inside, rushing to reach the hall as the winter weather intensifies.
Entering the throne room, the siblings offer their formal birthday greetings to the waiting Crown Prince. Flora presents her gifts to Louis, who is delighted to find the legendary palace blueberry pie.
Louis is pleasantly surprised to learn that Flora even prepared a special gift for the Emperor.
The blonde prince smiles tenderly, deeply touched by Flora's careful attention to every detail of his party. A moment of quiet intimacy passes between Louis and Flora as they prepare for the next festivities.
Louis invites everyone to the garden, where the spirit summoner will soon showcase their legendary elemental magic.
The magical garden lilies glow with an otherworldly light, signaling the start of the evening's main attraction. A sudden, brilliant saw echoes as a majestic fire spirit takes flight above the awestruck cloud. Gasp in astonishment, realizing they are witnessing the rare appearance of a mid-tier fire spirit.
Flora points out a shimmering water spirit to Elman, delighted by the variety of magical entities appearing. Agnes expresses shock at the scale of the summoning, noting how rare such mid-tier spirits truly are.
Flora identifies the imperial family, noticing the Empress shares the same striking blonde hair as her son. A calm, green-haired summoner steps forward, inviting the noble guests to enjoy the magical display.
A thunderous dune sounds as vibrant fireworks explode over the palace, illuminating the snowy night sky.
Elman and Agnes enjoy the view while Flora compares the imperial spirits to her memories of Evan.
Amidst the beautiful flowers and celebration, Flora's thoughts drift toward what Evan might be doing alone.
The story concludes for now as a peaceful atmosphere lingers after the grand imperial event.